Welcome back to News Talk. Coming up later in the hour, author Ronald Kessler talks about the new report on the Secret Service, and it's a scathing report, as you'll hear. Also, Congresswoman Donna Edwards of Maryland reacts to the shooting in California. Right now, though, let's get back to our conversation with D.C. Council Chairman Phil Mendelson. Phone lines open for those of you watching in the 11 a.m. hour. We'll go to the phones. Your questions and comments at our number 703-387-1020. You and your colleagues are debating a paid leave bill. How likely is this bill to pass, and what issues are you working through as you consider this legislation?
It's very likely that a paid leave bill will pass. The bill as introduced will probably be modified. The idea behind this legislation is that employees ought to have paid leave to take time for a pregnancy or a sick ailing parent, for example, or an ailing spouse. Those are just a couple of examples. And right now, under the Federal Family Medical Leave Act, there's 12 weeks. One can't lose their job, but it's unpaid. This bill, as introduced, would be 16 weeks that would be paid. And the way it would be paid is out of a fund, somewhat analogous to the unemployment fund, where payments are made by employers into the fund, and then that fund is available to pay the leave. There would be a benefit to businesses in a couple of ways. One is that instead of the business paying directly the leave to their employee, it's paid out of this fund, a broader pool like insurance that pays it, contributes into the fund. There's also a benefit to business because it's been shown that leave policies do actually improve employee performance and make workplaces more attractive to people who want to work, and therefore a better employment pool from which employers can draw.
Many folks have made the case that other nations have policies like this. We're sort of alone in not having it. If D.C. goes down this road and it proves to be a success, two ifs, but if that were to occur, do you think this could spur national action?
There's no question that there's a lot of national attention to what's before us. We're not the first state, but the proposal that we're looking at is far more generous than other states. California, New Jersey, Rhode Island, each of them have similar laws, although instead of 16 weeks, it's 6 weeks. And in the circumstances, eligibility, what's a qualifying event, somewhat...
Why did you pick such a big number, 16?
Well, that's what was introduced by a majority of the council members. And if nothing else, it certainly focuses the debate on how much time is the appropriate amount of time.
I forget what I was going to say.
Well, let me just say this.
Yeah.
You know, we had testimony yesterday that...
I was going to ask about the business community. Are they on board? Are they helping craft this in a way that they could ultimately support it? Or is their posture right now one of resistance?
Generally, the business community is not on board with this legislation. Although the testimony was mixed, the chamber seemed to be the most strident in its opposition. Others were saying that there's some, I don't know if I want to say middle ground, but there's something, but not as much as what this bill proposes.
Every morning on the way to work, I drive past some tents that some homeless people use that I believe were provided by the neighbors, the people who live in the surrounding neighborhood. I was under the impression that those tents were going to be forced down, that they were deemed unsanitary, and yet they're still there. Is there a way for people who don't want to be in a shelter to live this sort of life, or is this something that is ultimately, in the view of the city, problematic?
The law in the district is that we can't just have encampments. And I think in order to have an encampment, there has to be a permit from the mayor. And if you think about it in terms of order, and also public health and sanitation, for example, we really can't be having encampments around the city. On the other hand, this speaks to a very serious problem that we have with homelessness in the district. The district government has been overwhelmed with the number of homeless that has been increasing in the last several years. And it seems to be increasing in the district while it's not increasing in the region. And I don't think that's because people are coming into the district. I think it's just something that's going on, probably the affordability crisis in the district. So we've got to figure a way to better handle homelessness. The mayor's put forth some initiatives. The council has been supportive to try to make shelter more available and also to increase the the exits, if you will, out of shelter into affordable housing. Yes, to transition people, to do so with services. We want to reduce homelessness, and that's what we need to be doing. Should not be the goal that we're just spending our time evicting people who are living outside because they're homeless. We need to help get them shelter.
Homeless advocates seem firm that everyone should be in proper traditional housing of some kind. I've always wondered whether there is a segment of the population that, for whatever reason, and maybe it's a mental health issue where if they had mental health counseling, they wouldn't, quote, prefer to be in this sort of tent arrangement. But I've always wondered, do some people just like it better not with other people or whatever the circumstance is? I mean, is that a viable lifestyle? Is there, do you get where I'm going?
If you want to speak about it theoretically, I suspect there will always be somebody who doesn't want to live inside. But mental illness is a significant factor in this. And while it has been good policy to decentralize our mental health institutions, the reality is that a way that we're dealing with mental health is through our prisons and homeless shelters, and we have to improve our mental health services.
Neither of those sound ideal.
Correct.
If you were on the the Public Service Commission, how would you vote on the revised PEPCO Excellent?
Well, now, I think you asked me this last time, and I've said that generally because I happen to years ago invest in our local utility, I've stayed out of this debate.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. The new Metro General Manager is going to be here tomorrow. Have you had a chance to talk with him? And when you do, what will you say?
I've not spoken to him one-on-one, but he was introduced at the last Mayor Council breakfast. The council and the mayor meet once a month, and he was introduced. I look forward to working with him. You know, I'm active representing the district at the region's Transportation Planning Board. There's no question that WMATA is critical to our transportation system for the region, and WMATA clearly needs more support from each of the jurisdictions in terms of its capital needs, coming up with the dollars that are necessary to increase the rail capacity, increase the bus frequency. There's a lot of work to be done, and plenty to talk to them about on that.
I know that the FBI is going to be leaving their headquarters on Pennsylvania Avenue. It feels like Maryland and Virginia have the momentum in terms of where the agency builds a new headquarters. 2 sites in Maryland, 1 in Virginia. Does the district, and I know you're looking forward to being able to redevelop the site where the current FBI headquarters is located. That can be something exciting in terms of a whole range of things, retail, hotel, what have you. Does the district care if the FBI stays in town, and is that a reasonable, is that a viable, is that in the mix?
I'm not sure that it's in the mix. We looked at this a couple of years ago when the GSA first put out that it was looking for sites, and I think most of them at the time were outside the district, maybe all of them. You know, there are 2 sides to this. One of them is the prestige of having the federal government in Washington, D.C., and having an agency as big as the FBI inside Washington. The other side of it is that they don't pay taxes on the land. They don't pay income taxes on their revenues. Not that the FBI should have revenues. And so having income-producing property at its site is actually more beneficial to the government. There are 2 sides to this. We actually looked at this and had a hearing a couple of years ago, and the outcome of that is that you've not heard a lot from D.C. government officials about how we need to keep the FBI in the city. Phil
Mendelson is chairman of the D.C. Council. He's with us every month at this time. Thanks very much for being with us today.
Thank you, Bruce.
Good holiday, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. An update on the hour's top stories and the forecast when we return, and then inside that scathing report on the U.S. Secret Service.